Jack Doherty's name has become almost synonymous with internet chaos, and somehow he's managed to push the bar even lower. Last time we talked about Jack, he claimed he was robbed at gunpoint. He filed a police report. It made headlines, but even now, many viewers aren't buying it. The story felt off, the footage was strange, and Jack's reaction was inconsistent, to say the least. After that incident, he appeared on the Adam 22 podcast, where he bonded with Adam over something oddly specific, being ridiculed by the internet. The two connected on a shared experience of controversy and online backlash, with Jack even calling his ex-girlfriend a holy girl. The same ex who promotes her adult content to extremely young audiences. The irony was not lost on anyone. Then came the George Jonko podcast, where Jack was directly confronted. He was called out for promoting harmful behavior, for profiting from others, and for engaging in a form of online management that many view as exploitative. But that wasn't the end of his spiral. It was just the start. Because shortly after that, Jack was seen filming himself entering a home he no longer lives in, without permission, and live streaming the entire experience. That's not just risky, that's potentially illegal, and it shows a concerning disregard for privacy, boundaries, and safety. Jack walked up to the house, one he claims he lived in years ago, and began telling stories about partying there, wearing expensive jewelry with no security, and not remembering half the nights. I clearly felt nostalgic. But here's the problem. It's not his house anymore. It belongs to someone else. Yet there he was, roaming around the front yard with a flashlight, a camera, and 2 companions. If you were the current homeowner and looked outside at 10 p.m. seeing 3 people casing your property, you'd likely be calling the authorities, or worse, fearing for your safety. The girlfriend Jack brought with him seemed completely disengaged, staring at her phone while he wandered through his memories. Jack, meanwhile, pointed at rooms, recalled flood stories, and even tried to justify what he was doing by saying, "No one's living here," as if that somehow makes it okay to enter someone else's property. And here's the wild part. He knew it was wrong. His own cameraman whispered, "There's a security camera here." Jack ignored him. He pushed forward, climbed fences, and led his crew into the backyard. "This is where I used to jump into the pool," he said, narrating the entire event like it was a guided tour. At one point, even he admitted on stream, "Tell me break and enter, we're trespassing." Yes, Jack, that's exactly what you're doing. You filmed the entire thing, labeled it, and broadcast it online. That's not just risky content, that's self-incrimination. This wasn't a harmless prank. It wasn't even a case of misunderstanding. It was trespassing, streamed live, and acknowledged in real time by everyone involved. His own viewers told him to stop. The chat warned him. But Jack pressed on because views matter more than consequences. And here's the thing, if you're a camera operator working for someone who constantly films controversial or dangerous content, you're not just a bystander. In cases where crimes occur during filming, even the person holding the camera can be considered complicit. That's happened before, and with Jack, it could easily happen again. By the time Jack left the property, he had not only streamed a possible criminal act, he had turned it into a spectacle. One that endangered others, disrespected private property, and pushed boundaries that should never be crossed in the name of content. After the controversial Florida live stream, you might expect Jack Doherty to take a break, revalue it, maybe step back from the edge a little. But instead, he doubled down, this time from Dubai. What started as a vacation quickly turned into a spectacle when Jack uploaded a video of what appeared to be a serious car crash involving his girlfriend behind the wheel of a luxury rental vehicle. At first glance, it looked dramatic, the kind of viral moment Jack's content thrives on. But the more people watched it, the more questions started to emerge. The video begins with a jarring sound and Jack yelling, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" Concerned? Sure. But to those familiar with Jack's real-life reactions, the tone didn't quite add up. In a previous real car accident involving his McLaren, Jack's first instinct wasn't to check on his friends or passengers. It was to ask whether his camera equipment was damaged. Not who was hurt, not whether people were okay, just the gear. That disconnect has viewers skeptical. If this Dubai crash was real, where was the real panic? The real chaos? Why was the car nearly spotless, the damage minimal, and everyone involved so calm? Even more telling, the moment Jack contacts the car rental owner, instead of expressing genuine remorse or panic, it sounds scripted. Convenient, like the kind of scene you reshoot to make sure it lands just right on TikTok. Jack explains that his girlfriend was driving, that she lost control, and now the car needs to be assessed. The rental company responds on camera with surprising ease. Too much ease, actually. Anyone who has dealt with luxury vehicle rentals knows these situations are tense. But this, it felt more like a collaboration than a confrontation. And as soon as the camera starts rolling, Jack does what's now become a familiar reflex. He starts shifting blame. "She did it," he says, pointing at his girlfriend without hesitation. It's immediate, automatic, and uncomfortable to watch. The girlfriend, meanwhile, says almost nothing. She apologizes softly and stands off to the side while Jack tries to downplay the damage. "I think it's just a scratch," he says. The rental agent replies with a long list of visible issues: broken lights, a leaking radiator, potential structural damage. But Jack insists it's minor. Then comes the excuse: "My flight is in an hour." He asks if they can just handle it later. That's become a pattern. When Jack faces consequences, he disappears. When questions come up, he's suddenly unavailable. And when responsibility is on the table, someone else is always at fault. Even if the crash was real, and it might have been, Jack's reaction shows a disturbing lack of accountability. It also raises a larger question. How is Jack Doherty still affording all of this? Because let's be honest, YouTube revenue alone doesn't cover this kind of lifestyle. Not consistently, and viewers have long speculated that Jack's wealth isn't as solid as it appears. The jewelry, often borrowed, the homes, frequently rented, the cars, almost always leased or loaned. Behind the scenes, he's been linked to a very different kind of income stream, namely, OnlyFans management. According to multiple public statements and podcast appearances, Jack has been involved in helping women build adult content brands. He promotes them, signs them, and takes a percentage in exchange for visibility. That's how many believe he's funded his lifestyle, from flights to Ferraris, not through content, through commissions. And the results speak for themselves. One by one, his public relationships have followed the same pattern. Jack appears in videos with a new woman. She opens an adult account. He promotes it. She earns large sums. The partnership ends. The process restarts. This isn't speculation. It's a repeated cycle confirmed in clips, contracts, and statements. And while it may not be illegal, it certainly calls into question his ethics and the true costs of the lifestyle he portrays. Even in Dubai, during what's supposed to be a major crisis, a total luxury vehicle, an accident involving his partner, Jack's focus seems to remain on optics. Not safety, not repair, not even genuine reflection, just views. This chapter isn't about a car crash. It's about credibility. And for Jack, that may be the one thing more broken than the vehicle. For someone who built his entire persona on being in control, Jack Doherty's night out with rapper Lil Baby marked a turning point. And not in the way he hoped. It was supposed to be a celebration. According to Jack, he paid Lil Baby upwards of $200,000 to appear at one of his parties. A massive flex, a high-level appearance meant to boost Jack's credibility, bring in views, and give him the ultimate moment of validation from one of his idols. Instead, it became one of the most humiliating moments of his career. During the party, an incident occurred that Jack would later describe as getting his chain taken. Whether it was a prank, a miscommunication, or something more deliberate remains debated. But what we know for sure is that Jack was visibly upset, pacing around with cameras still rolling, asking, begging for his chain back. "Bro, I need my chain back," he kept saying. "Please, you can't take it." And that's when it happened. He admitted the chain wasn't even his. "This isn't even mine, my jeweler loaned it to me." The sentence landed like a hammer. After years of portraying himself as someone who owned luxury, the truth was out. Much of Jack's lifestyle was borrowed. The cars, the homes, and now the chain. This wasn't just an embarrassing moment. It was a crack in the foundation of everything he claimed to be. As he trailed after Lil Baby, voice trembling, repeating "please," something shifted in the audience's perception. This wasn't confidence. This wasn't charisma. This was a collapse captured in real time. And it only got worse. There's a moment in every influencer's career when the cheers stop. The jokes don't land. The chat goes quiet. The audience looks around and asks, "Wait, are we still watching this?" For Jack Doherty, that moment arrived right after the chain incident. What used to be a massive wave of attention turned into something much more uncomfortable. Distance. Not a dramatic cancellation, not a trending hashtag. Just people slowly stepping back, turning off notifications, quietly unfollowing. No outrage, just silence. This wasn't just fans growing tired. It was everyone: sponsors, collaborators, co-hosts, even other creators who once shared his content, partied in his homes, and tagged along for the wild stunts. All of them suddenly quiet. And why wouldn't they be? The chain wasn't the issue. It was the symbol of the issue. The tipping point in a pattern of behavior that people could no longer ignore. Staged car crashes for views. Live stream trespassing. Public breakdowns over rented property. Emotional manipulation for sympathy. Business built on promoting others' content while portraying it as his own wealth. It was no longer edgy. It was no longer entertaining. It was becoming a liability. Even Jack's own crew, his camera operators, assistants, and background collaborators began to disappear. Some of them had been seen in dozens of videos, but now, gone. No explanation. No goodbye video. Just a slow fade into the background. Because when someone repeatedly pushes legal, ethical, and moral boundaries, everyone around them has to ask, am I next? If something goes wrong, do I get caught in the fallout? Jack's old collaborators seemed to realize that too late in some cases. One by one, the IRL streamers who used to defend him, the influencers who'd vouch for his realness, started distancing themselves. No call-out videos, just avoidance. It's the influencer equivalent of watching someone walk toward a cliff and choosing not to follow. Sponsorships also took a hit. The kinds of companies that used to flock to Jack for visibility, energy drinks, clothing brands, even digital wallets, started backing out. Some stopped responding altogether. Why? Because Jack wasn't just unpredictable, he was uncontrollable. You can't partner with someone who might livestream a felony tomorrow. You can't hand over your logo to a creator who's constantly trending for the wrong reasons. Eventually, even high engagement isn't worth the risk. That's the danger of building a brand on shock and spectacle. It only works as long as people feel like they're in on the ride. Once it feels reckless or exploitative, the audience changes the channel. And that's exactly what happened. Jack used to be seen as the guy doing wild stuff with money. Now he's viewed as the guy who's doing too much for too little reason and involving people who didn't sign up for it. The comments are no longer ironic or supportive, they're observant. This used to be fun. Now it's just uncomfortable. He doesn't look okay. Where did everyone go? This feels like the end of something. And the scariest part, Jack is still performing like it's not happening. Still uploading, still flexing, still filming dramatic moments as if the crowd is still roaring. But it isn't. What used to be, I can't believe he did that, has turned into, I don't want to watch this anymore. And when that shift happens, you're not an influencer anymore. You're a lesson. Jack Doherty always gave off the image of someone who made it big. Fast cars, flashy jewelry, luxurious trips, high-rise apartments. It all looked effortless. To fans scrolling past his stories and streams, Jack was the guy who figured it out. But behind the scenes, the numbers never quite added up. Even his most dedicated followers began asking the same question. How does he afford all of this? Because as it turns out, the YouTube ad revenue alone wouldn't cover even a fraction of his lifestyle. Not with how often he was crashing expensive cars, flying first class, and staying in penthouses. There were sponsorships, sure, but even those began to slow down. That's when people started looking deeper. And what they found revealed an entirely different business model. Jack wasn't just an influencer. He was a manager, specifically a manager for adult content creators. Over the past few years, Jack has been linked to multiple online personalities, women who shortly after appearing in his videos launched their own subscription-based content platforms. Some publicly said he helped them get started. Others credited him with promotion, strategy, and distribution. In several podcasts and interviews, Jack admitted he had a hand in helping these creators grow, often taking a percentage of their earnings in exchange. On paper, it's business. But in execution, many started questioning the ethics. What began as collaborations with girlfriends quickly took on a pattern. A new partner appears in Jack's content. Within weeks, she starts a subscription platform. Jack promotes the content to his massive audience. She gains traction, and Jack gains a cut. Eventually, the partnership ends, and the cycle repeats. This wasn't a one-time occurrence. It became a pattern. And while technically legal, viewers began to wonder how much of Jack's career was based on his own work, and how much was built on monetizing others. Because what started as flashy content slowly began to look like something else. A career built on association, not originality. A lifestyle paid for by platforms he didn't own. A business model built on commission rather than creation. This wouldn't be an issue on its own. Many creators manage, partner, and promote. But Jack rarely presented it that way. He continued to frame his content as his wealth, his success, his empire. The mansions, the cars, the trips, all shown as personal victories. But when the revenue trail was finally traced, it painted a different picture. Behind the luxury, contracts. Behind the chains, loans. Behind the girlfriends, business agreements. That's when public trust really began to shift. Is anything in this guy's life actually his? That question started popping up in comment sections, Reddit threads, even video essays. Jack didn't just build a brand, he built a persona. And as soon as the audience realized it was mostly performance, the foundation started to crack. Because in a digital world, transparency matters more than ever. Audiences today are smart. They know when something's off. They pick up on inconsistencies. They follow the money. And in Jack's case, they found more questions than answers, which brings us back to the core issue. Jack Doherty didn't fall because he was rich and flashy. He fell because he presented other people's success as his own. He didn't just flex wealth, he borrowed it, rebranded it, and broadcast it without credit. And now the people watching from the outside are beginning to realize something sobering. Jack wasn't a millionaire. He was a middleman. The most revealing part of Jack Doherty's downfall isn't in a live stream or a viral clip. It's in the absence of people, the absence of support, the absence of anyone standing beside him. Because now Jack Doherty is alone. This wasn't always the case. He used to be surrounded by cameramen, collaborators, influencers, friends, and a rotating cast of personalities who appeared in his videos. But now they're gone. One by one, quietly, deliberately, they didn't cancel him. They didn't attack him. They just left. And the silence speaks louder than any drama video ever could. Why the sudden retreat? It's simple. No one wants to be in the room when the lights come on. Because when you're filming questionable content, trespassing, faking accidents, walking up to strangers' homes in the middle of the night with a camera crew, you might get views, but you also get risk. Real-world, real-life consequences. And for Jack's team, the risk started outweighing the reward. Even those who remained off-camera, the editors, the drivers, the assistants began stepping back, because they knew if something ever truly went wrong, they could be held responsible too. It's not just the person in front of the lens anymore. If you're filming something illegal and you're part of making that content possible, you're not just an employee, you're potentially a witness, or worse, a participant. This isn't hypothetical. Other creators have already faced legal action for this exact type of behavior. Whether it was pranks that went too far, fake robberies, or trespassing, the law doesn't distinguish between content and criminal behavior when charges are involved. And Jack, he's built an entire catalog out of risky behavior. And now fans are starting to wonder, what happens if law enforcement catches up? Could previous streams be used as evidence? Has Jack unintentionally documented his own investigation? The risk is no longer just theoretical, and even Jack seems to be feeling it. He's more anxious in videos now, less confident, sometimes visibly rattled when things don't go according to plan. There are moments when the persona slips, and what's left is someone clearly aware that the consequences may finally be arriving. At the same time, the energy around his content has changed. Fewer big stunts, less enthusiasm in his voice, lower production value, shorter appearances from other creators. It's as if the infrastructure of his brand is slowly dismantling brick by brick. His audience notices too, and not just the critics. Even former supporters have begun to admit that something feels different now. The spark is gone, the momentum has slowed, and the excitement has been replaced by a kind of eerie, uncomfortable tension. People still watch, but not for inspiration or entertainment. They watch like it's a countdown, not to a milestone, to a moment, because Jack's trajectory no longer feels like it's building towards something. It feels like it's closing in. That's the true cost of chasing attention without a foundation. Eventually, the very platform you use to build your identity becomes the spotlight that reveals the cracks. And right now, Jack's entire world is lit up, and there's nowhere left to hide. He can't outrun it. He can't re-edit it. He already uploaded it. The audience is watching. The platforms are watching. And yes, so are the authorities. By now, Jack Doherty's story has gone beyond commentary videos and reaction clips. It's turned into something much bigger, a public case study. Not about clout, not about internet fame, but about what happens when a creator documents everything and forgets that everything can be used against them. The internet used to laugh with Jack, then it laughed at him. Now, it's evaluating him. Because viewers today are smart, they see patterns. They break down timelines. They examine motives. They know when a crazy moment is real and when it's orchestrated for engagement. And in Jack's case, the breakdown has already begun. People are pulling footage from as far back as 2 years. They're sensing live stream timestamps. They're reanalyzing his tone, his reactions, even the off-camera voices in his clips. What used to be just content has become evidence. Take the Dubai car incident. At first, it looked dramatic. Now it's being replayed frame by frame. Viewers are pointing out the lack of visible damage, the oddly casual responses, the inconsistency in Jack's story. The more it's dissected, the more it resembles a setup, not an accident. Then there's the home trespassing live stream. At first, some dismissed it as reckless but harmless. But as legal analysts weighed in, yes, actual lawyers on YouTube and TikTok, it became clear Jack had crossed more than just a property line. He had crossed into documenting criminal behavior. And while that doesn't mean instant consequences, it does mean this. The platform no longer protects you just because you're entertaining. This shift is what separates viral creators from sustainable ones. Viral creators live moment to moment, chasing the next big stunt. Sustainable creators build trust, and trust, once broken, doesn't come back through apology videos. It comes through transparency, consistency, and earned respect. That's what Jack never built. And now, the very people who used to be his defenders, fans, followers, even other creators, are treating his channel like a digital courtroom. Every video is on trial. Every apology is scrutinized. Every stunt is weighed not for entertainment, but for intent. Because at a certain point, people stop asking, what did he do? And start asking, why does he keep doing this? And that's where Jack's content shifted, from shocking to concerning. The pattern is clear. A controversial moment happens. Jack downplays it. He follows up with a real moment, a crying clip, a monologue, or a lesson learned. Then, within days, another risky video appears. The cycle restarts, and with every repetition, the audience becomes less forgiving. Because it's not just about the stunts anymore. It's about credibility. And once that's lost, you can't buy it back. Not with cars, not with jewelry, not with brand deals. The internet may be fast-moving, but it has a long memory. And now Jack Doherty's channel feels less like a success story and more like a live feed of someone trying to hold together a narrative that's already crumbled. Because here's the real twist. He wanted to be known for success. He wanted to be known for wealth. He wanted to be known for risk-taking. But what he's actually known for now? Not knowing when to stop. By this point, Jack Doherty's story isn't about whether or not he's entertaining. It's about whether or not he can recover. And the answer increasingly appears to be no. The change wasn't sudden. It was gradual, like watching a fire burn out one spark at a time. It began with the audience pulling back, fewer comments, fewer shares, fewer likes. Even the criticism, once constant, began to fade, not because the behavior stopped, but because people stopped caring. Then came the brands, the companies, the sponsors. Once Jack's channel was a go-to for product placements and collaborations. He had visibility. He had momentum. Even if the content was controversial, it performed. That's all many companies needed to see. But that was before. Now potential sponsors do what every company does before signing a deal. They Google. They check social media. They see the patterns. And what do they find? Live streams that brush the edges of legality. Public outbursts and breakdowns. Clips of confrontations, property disputes, and questionable associations. Viewers raising red flags. Collaborators staying quiet. Moments where Jack is more known for what went wrong than what he actually produced. To a brand, that's not influence, it's instability. And in today's digital landscape, brand safety isn't a suggestion, it's a requirement. No matter how many views someone pulls, if they're one headline away from controversy, the deal won't happen. So the calls stopped coming. The email inbox grew quiet. And even longtime partners, some of whom had supported Jack for years, began to distance themselves. Quietly, professionally, without announcement, just silence. And now when Jack uploads a video, it's not met with anticipation. It's met with curiosity. Not what will he do next, but is this the video where it all finally collapses? That's the danger of building a brand on unpredictability. Eventually, the unpredictability stops being fun and starts being fatigue. For fans, it's exhausting. For sponsors, it's risky. And for Jack himself, it's isolating. He's still posting, still smiling, still flexing, but it feels different now. The tone is off. The settings are quieter. The confidence seems rehearsed, because when your entire identity has been built on being the wild one, there's no easy transition to the trustworthy one. And audiences notice. They always do. In comments sections, you'll see it. This used to be my favorite channel. It just doesn't feel real anymore. I hope he figures things out. Those aren't hate comments. There's something worse, disappointment. Because deep down, many viewers wanted to root for Jack. They wanted to believe the success was real, that the lifestyle was earned, that the growth was sustainable. But when every sign points in the opposite direction, the illusion breaks. Jack Doherty isn't getting canceled. He's getting left behind. Not with noise, but with silence. And for a creator whose entire career is dependent on being seen, there may be no greater consequence. For a moment, it looked like Jack Doherty was trying to turn the page. The content shifted. The tone softened. There were fewer stunts, fewer controversies. He started sharing growth posts, talking about mental health, surrounding himself with new people, hinting at a more mature direction for his platform. It looked like a pivot, a fresh start, but the internet didn't buy it. Why? Because by now, the audience wasn't judging Jack by what he said. They were judging him by what he had already done. And what they'd seen over and over again was a cycle. A risky or questionable video goes viral. Jack faces backlash. He posts a somber message implying self-reflection. Then, within days, it's back to the same content, flexes, drama, controversy. So when the rebrand came, viewers didn't see growth. They saw another attempt to regain momentum. The new thumbnails were cleaner, the titles more positive, but the voice, the message, still familiar. Even when Jack tried motivational content, speaking directly to the camera, offering advice about staying focused or working hard, the trust just wasn't there, because it's hard to take advice from someone whose own journey is filled with contradictions. It's hard to believe in a new chapter when the ink from the last one hasn't dried. Urban branding isn't about visuals, it's not about background music or color palettes. It's about behavior, and Jack never fully let go of the old one. Even as he posted about change, subtle signs remained. A collaboration with a controversial figure, a reaction video that reignited old drama, A TikTok teasing a new stunt that felt all too familiar. Viewers picked up on it. So did former fans. And the response was clear. We've seen this before. There's a truth about the internet that's often forgotten. People will give second chances, but not endless ones. Jack had been given many. And each time he promised change. Each time he slipped back into old patterns. So by the time the rebrand rolled around, the audience had already checked out. The views dipped. Engagement fell. Even his critics grew quieter. Because there was nothing left to critique. It wasn't a transformation. It was a last attempt to recover what was already lost. Trust. And without that, no logo, slow, or heartfelt video will bring people back. Jack didn't just lose followers. He lost belief. Because you can only say, I've changed so many times before people realize you haven't. And in that silence, something became clear. It wasn't the internet that gave up on Jack. It was Jack who gave up on building something real. Every creator wants their story to end with a triumph, a comeback, a lesson learned, a standing ovation. But sometimes this story ends in silence, not with scandal, not with applause, just stillness. That's where Jack Doherty's career has arrived. He isn't the villain in some dramatic expose. He isn't the misunderstood genius waiting to be appreciated. He's simply a case study, a blueprint for what happens when image becomes more important than integrity, because in the end, Jack wasn't undone by one mistake. He was undone by the accumulation of many small decisions, all aimed at creating a version of himself that wasn't real. It worked for a while. The cars, the chains, the camera crews, the nonstop momentum. But as time passed, viewers saw the pattern. A lifestyle that was mostly borrowed. A reputation built on moments, not meaning. Relationships that looked more like partnerships. And a growing disconnect between what was shown and what was real. And now, as the uploads slow and the views drop, the narrative has changed. Jack Doherty isn't just the guy who used to pull millions of views. He's the name people mention when talking about what happens when you build your brand without a foundation. Don't fake your lifestyle. Don't treat controversy as currency. Don't assume the audience will always come back. These aren't just lessons, they're warnings, and they all come back to the same name. In creator circles, Jack has become a quiet example, the influencer who had it all and lost it trying to hold on to an illusion. And there's a real sadness in that, because beyond the stunts, the headlines, and the flexes, there might have been potential. He had reach. He had time. He had a platform. But he chose shortcuts. He chose spectacle. And when the cameras finally stopped rolling, he was left with no legacy, just lessons for the next generation. Now, Jack uploads occasionally. The numbers are lower. The energy is different. The excitement is gone. And maybe that's okay. Because not every story ends with redemption. Some end with realization. Realization that influence isn't earned through noise. That authenticity matters more than algorithms. That the most powerful thing you can build online isn't fame. It's trust. And trust, once lost, doesn't return on a schedule. It returns when your actions catch up to your words. And sometimes that never happens. So Jack's story ends here, not with one final dramatic act, but with a quiet truth. He could build something lasting. Instead, he built something loud. And loud things fade fastest. That's the story of Jack Doherty. And it's not one to repeat.